All right, here we go. What a week, my friends, in the sporting world.
Yeah.
Andy, Brian, and Thomas with you on the Best Coast Sports Connection, episode 12. Playoff baseball, intriguing action in the NFL. Gentlemen, how you feeling on this Friday?
October, baby. This is exactly what we were talking about last week. We were like, oh, man, it's October. You couldn't ask for much more. Every sport is taking place right now. The NBA is in the news kind of for all the wrong reasons right now. But playoff baseball has been exceptional. College football is coming up on the start of when the rivalry games kick into gear. A lot of top 25 matchups this weekend. And the NFL is just king as always. So, yeah, man, oh, man, this is the best time of year to be a sports fan.
Love that take. Thomas, how are you feeling? I mean, you write, you follow sports closely. How are you feeling right now?
Seems like every day I have like a new topic that they want me to write about. It's really been amazing. A lot of people want me to are asking me about my opinion on the Padres and possibly off-season moves. There's a lot of talk about the Padres because, nationally, because they really feel that if they get the right manager, they're gonna be a possible contender next year. And I know we've all talked about it, but when you hear from people from from New York and Philadelphia and other places and in the National League are like, yeah, if you get the right guy, I'm scared of you guys, and so I'm really looking forward to it. And Brian, as you mentioned, November 9th is the big day.
The big day. Woo. Bringing back the brown for our pods.
Oh, yeah.
So
Can't wait.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, the managerial decision that the front office will need to make here with the Padres. We've seen a lot of names. Ultimately, Ron Fowler, the owner, has said it's A.J. Preller's decision, the GM. Who do you have a favorite, or is there anybody that you're leaning towards, Brian? We've heard Ron Washington might be the favorite, previously managing with the Rangers. Anybody else sticking out to you?
I mean, at the beginning of this whole process, it seemed like Joe Madden was the name that everybody was talking about. And then as of, a few days ago, it seemed like Joe Madden of the Angels was a virtual lock. So I'm not really sure what happened there. But I haven't heard his name brought back up in regards to the Padres. I don't think the Padres have interviewed anybody yet. It's so weird how quiet things are because when the job first became open, everyone was talking about how this was the premier job in baseball, the greatest opening. You're going to get to go coach a team that is potentially, on the track up towards a playoff and World Series contending type organization. And then everything has just been so quiet. So I don't know if stuff's going on behind the scenes, if they're just slow playing it, what the deal is. But I'm very surprised that there haven't been more rumors or people closely tied to the position. We've talked about Ron Washington. Thomas was joking. There's a guy, Jace Tingler, that they keep talking about. It's a name that's coming up a bunch. He, a coach in the Rangers organization. But there's a lot of pressure. It seems like this hire is going to kind of set the tone for the 2020 Padres and beyond. And, I guess the big question is, if they get hired before November 9th, what kind of jersey are they going to have the manager put on?
Exactly. Another name that's been put out there is Brad Ausmus, who got fired from the Angels after just 1 year there, former manager for the Tigers, former catcher for the Padres, so a lot of people know that name. I think he talked to the Padres already, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was an official interview. But so that's a name out there. Do you have any background on this Tinkler fella?
I wish I did. I can't write 500 words for you, Andy. I apologize. I agree with you. I'm a little bit nervous if he's one of the names because I think we're seeing maybe possibly a little bit of a power struggle between Ron Fowler and A.J. Preller. I think Preller wants somebody that kind of just takes his orders from the lineup, that analytics side of the baseball now, and just wants him to write out, basically become a front office personnel staff member and not being a manager like we grown up with. So, and I think Fowler wants an experienced manager, maybe of a Mike Scioscia, I don't think Bruce Bochy is going to be the name. I was hoping for that, but I just don't think that's going to be to fruition. But I would be pleased with Ron Washington, because one aspect that I heard from other writers is that he brings a camaraderie to the clubhouse, but he's very stern, and he wants a certain style played. And two teams, two of his teams in Texas went to the World Series, and if Nelson Cruz could catch a fly ball, they would have won a World Series title. But other than that, I think he's a decent manager, and that would be a great choice. But I just couldn't go through another experience of seeing Andy Green 2.0 with a manager with no experience. That would scare me and really perk my ears up. That what are we doing here? We're just seeming to going around in circles with this managerial position.
Yeah, I want to see somebody that has at least some managing experience that'll command the respects, especially from the likes of Hosmer and Machado, who we saw didn't have the best second halves, and so you don't know if that was part of they weren't inspired by Andy Green, or if they kind of just gave up a little. But yeah, you definitely want somebody that's going to inspire and be the face of this team for the next few years. So we'll see.
The only guy that I would be excited about that doesn't have any managerial experience is Mark Loretta.
Yeah.
But that's only because of his time in San Diego, and I think he has the personality. He's been grooming under Joe Maddon. He's worked in the Padres front office, so he's familiar there. And I just think he's a really sharp, super guy. Loved him as a player, and I would like to see him be a manager somewhere. So that would be the name. But yeah, like Thomas said, if it's a Andy Green type where it's someone we've never heard of, then yeah, I don't know. It's not terribly inspiring.
Oh yeah, it'll be an intriguing storyline for the next few weeks until they hire somebody. But overall, it was a good week for us Padres fans, and I am a Padres fan. Just putting it out there.
Oh,
I am.
Okay.
Again,
I had some questions the other day, Wednesday morning. I don't know.
So our heated rival, the Los Angeles Dodgers, lost in a Game 5 to the Nationals. I put myself out there not because I like the Dodgers, but because I can't even say I respect them. I know that they're good, so
You fear them.
yeah, I fear them a little bit. And I kind of saw a trajectory of them making the World Series the last 2 years, losing, and then having an even better regular season this year, and ultimately winning the World Series. But looks like it was a regression from them. But let's talk about that game specifically. When I saw the Dodgers up 3-0 in Game 5, I thought it was a lock for them to win, especially with Buehler going strong into the 7th inning. But what a comeback from the Nationals.
Yeah, it was exciting. I watched the entire game, and when a San Diego team's not involved in something, sometimes I tune in and out, and I'm not totally captivated if I don't have a rooting interest either way. This one had me completely captivated. I know it's the playoffs and it's an elimination game, but we had a game a few hours earlier that ended 13-1 and was a laugher, and no need to watch. But this game had everything. It had the drama, it had the comeback. The Dodgers had a handful of opportunities to add on to their lead and to kind of run away with it, but Strasburg buckled down, pitched really well in the late innings, and then the offense did just enough to hang in there. And then when Kershaw came in the 7th with the bases loaded and struck out Adam Eaton, I thought, okay, that's it, it's over.
Yeah.
Then they brought him back out, and we all know what happened on the next couple pitches, but that was so exciting. And then in the 9th, it looked like Will Smith might have gotten a hold of one to hit a walk-off home run.
The whole bench was thinking
that
they
was
won
embarrassing.
Yeah.
And awesome to see from our perspective. But that game just had everything. Valentin, one of our buddies who's a big Dodger fan, he was texting me. He's always been really down on Joe Kelly since he became a Dodger. And he texted me, why is Joe Kelly still in there? Oh, my gosh. And then he goes on, gives up a couple hits, a walk, and then the grand slam. So there was all this kind of stuff. And then what a game to be able to talk about later. All these managerial decisions, and should he have pulled Kershaw? Kershaw in the playoffs and that narrative. There were so many storylines just for that one game that it kind of overshadowed anything else that's taken place in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really thought Dave Roberts had a bad game managing, because to me, Kershaw did his job, as you mentioned, Brian. When he got that out with the bases loaded, that was his job.
Yeah.
He's not a pitcher that goes back out there for another inning in that type of scenario.
Yeah.
He didn't even use his bullpen. I mean, Baez wasn't used, and then what happened to Kenley Jansen? I mean,
I know.
He was a spectator like us. I mean, I was thoroughly shocked that he did not use his closer at all in that game. I mean, I know he was a little bit gun shy, and he hasn't been as dominant as he has in years past, but boy, you cannot have him become a spectator in a deciding game. That was just a bad night for Dave Roberts.
A guy like Kenta Maeda, who's been really solid in the pen, by the time he came in, it was too late. The game was already tied. He looked really good when he was in there. And then Kenley Jansen comes in. You're already down by 4 runs. Like, what is the point of that? Those two guys who are arguably, the best guys to put in those positions came in after it was too late. That was a tough one for Doc Roberts, who I also really like.
Yeah,
it's just a bummer that he's a Dodger.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Love that guy.
No criticism. I think he's a great manager.
Yeah.
He just had a bad night.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the Kershaw narrative. I mean, that just doesn't look good for him. The first home run he gave up, that was not a bad pitch. It was halfway down the knees of Rendon, and he just golfed it out of there.
Yeah.
That second one was juicy right over the middle. But that was so fun to watch the Nationals fight,
Yeah.
coming up clutch. And then Kendrick, with the grand slam, had some fielding troubles in that game and throughout the playoffs, so it was pretty awesome to see him come through. And I just love the character of Max Scherzer. We obviously didn't see him end up coming into the game, but he's just racing and pacing anytime he's on camera. He wanted to get into the game. But,
yeah, for sure.
It's going to be a good NLCS between them and the Cardinals, who, as we've talked about, or the Cardinals as usual.
The Cardinals just Cardinal all the time. Even when Thomas was talking about Ron Washington and not winning the World Series, I was like, well, David Freese went all Cardinals on him.
Yeah.
Like, they just make the right plays all the time, and it's random guys like that who step up in big moments. So, the Cardinals are, that elite type of team, but it was so cool to see the Nationals in that stage. A team that started the season 19-31.
Man.
And they stayed the course, didn't get all, trigger happy, fired their manager. That's just such a cool story. I've never disliked them, but right now I'm pulling for them. Like, that is the best story remaining in baseball, and it was just so cool to watch them go into Dodger Stadium and win a deciding game.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I have a question.
Yeah.
What was Bryce Harper thinking after that game?
I know. I kind of feel for the guy. Like, that's rough.
Yeah.
He's a very good player. And him being gone, I don't think is the reason that all of a sudden now they make it to the NLCS. That's an easy story to tell, but I do feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they obviously show they still have a good team without him. So hopefully better times for Bryce, as they just had a bad year. They fired their manager after 2 seasons, so I'm sure it was obviously pretty brutal to watch for him.
You know who I don't feel bad for? Is Dodger fans. So, Andy, all these Dodger fans are talking about how tough it is to be a Dodger fan because they've lost the last 2 World Series, and they've won 7 division titles. They have no idea what it's like to be a Padre fan. We haven't seen a winning season in a decade, haven't sniffed the playoffs. What do you take about that narrative of Dodger fans feeling bad for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely garbage. I mean, we're a franchise that so for anybody that's an older Padres fan, we've been around for 50 years.
Yep.
5 playoff appearances.
Yep.
2 World Series appearances, but nothing close to a championship. So, trust me, it is rough being a Padres fan. There's always, every season, I always think, well, I shouldn't say I always think, but a lot of times they're like, oh, we have the pitching, we're good enough to maybe be a wild card team.
Yep.
Especially going through this hype session that we've got going forward. So I still think I got that going forward, but you've got to be very patient to be a Padres fan.
Yep.
Drink a lot of beers throughout the year to get through a lot of games. So that's my feeling on it.
I second that motion.
I completely agree with you there, AB. But better times ahead.
Yes,
We've
absolutely.
talked about that many times. So,
and again,
it's about to be a real good time to be a Padre fan,
Yeah.
and I firmly believe that.
One thing on the fans, did you see that video of the how fake Dodger fans are? That Dodger fan that ran down the aisle and
Threw
threw
his-
Oh, his
Kershaw.
Kershaw
Yeah.
jersey, yeah.
And then it was announced that he did that after the game, after the fact. Like it was all like for stage effect.
Really?
Yeah.
Not surprising.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not at all. If you guys are, so we've talked about November 9th, revealing the new
Yep.
brown and gold jerseys. If you guys are purchasing a jersey that you hope a Padre is going to be there for at least the next 5 years, who you got?
FTJ, baby.
Yep.
Fernando Tatis Jr.
Hard to
Yeah.
go against that.
Cannot be anybody else. I love that guy. I love his spirit. The number 23 is really cool anyway.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like the symbol, the figure, and the leader of the new generation
Yeah.
of Padre, and just that new jersey. I plan on getting one. Whatever they look like, I don't care. I'm getting it. Fernando Tatis Jr. Tomas?
Chris Paddock for me.
Oh, nice.
And he seems like the guy, like a Jake Peavy type that's going to
Yep.
be here for a while and kind of make, like a Trevor Hoffman, Jake Peavy, where they make San Diego their home all year round. He seems like that type of a player. I loved his attitude. I loved how he didn't give it he didn't give a damn, quite frankly, about how other teams felt about him. This is the way he pitched. That little mini feud he had with Pete Alonso. He was
Yep.
like, "Bring it! I'll strike you out. I really don't care." I just love that type of attitude because you don't see that too often here in San Diego. And to me, like you said, Brian, I think him and Tatis are really bringing a new attitude to the Padres that we can be the top players at our position and play in San Diego, and they're not afraid of it, and
Yep.
they kind of bring it along with some pride. And I just hope that we can get a few more players surrounding them. And but to me, like I look at this roster, I don't see them being that far away. Quite frankly, it's got to be the right move to kind of move them along. And I don't know what it is yet, but I think they're not that close. And boy, you can just taste it sometimes when you watch this team play.
Andy, who you got?
I think I'm going Jace Tinkler.
What number is that?
Number 99.
That's like Thomas and his Lucas Glover picks.
No, I think I'm going Mackenzie Gore.
Oh, baby, I
I
like
don't,
it.
I don't know what
Nice.
number
I think he
don't know
wears
what
61, or at
61.
least that's what he has worn in the minors. And like Chris Paddock's 59,
Yeah, right?
so we got a couple
Pretty
random numbers.
distinctive high numbers.
But that's
for
pretty
pitchers.
cool. Yeah,
Hopefully, we'll see him next year. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we definitely got to see him at some point.
he'll be up sometime next
Yeah.
year. I hope he breaks camp with the team, kind of like Paddock did this year. I think he's that type of guy. And they liken his stuff to Kershaw. Hopefully, he's a better October pitcher. But I like that you're thinking a guy who still hasn't even come up, but we
Yeah,
got
it's a
so
good
much
one.
of the franchise's future potential rests on that guy's left arm.
Absolutely,
So
and then I'm going
with that.
retro with a Randy Jones.
Oh,
he
yeah,
pitched-
number
he
35,
pitched
baby.
with just the brown and gold, never with that orange color that ultimately got brought in. So those are the two on my mind, especially lefty pitchers.
Yeah, I like
all
it.
about that.
I like that.
You got a retro, Thomas?
For the Padres, let me think quick. Steve Finley.
Oh, nice.
I love Finley. I always liked him, and I even followed him after he left San Diego. And the guy always played hard, and he was a sneaky, like, really good hitter. I remember like a couple times he knocked in like 5 runs, and I was like, wow. I would never think of Steve Finley like knocking in 5 runs in one game. He had that little tomahawk swing down the right field line, and he played a great center field.
I like it. I'm going Roberto. No, excuse me, Benito Santiago. I was going to say Roberto Alomar. No. I'll go
We had him for, what, 2
Benito
years before
Santiago.
you-
I'm going Benny.
Robbie.
Yeah.
Like it. 87 Rookie of the Year, I want to say.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had the hitting record, right? Rookie hitting record,
He did.
30 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he would gun people down from his knees, and that was pretty awesome. Yep,
Love
love
it.
that guy.
Great pod stock, guys. Let's switch over to NFL. So just
Oh,
let me
poor
start
Andy.
by saying I'm
This guy.
slowly been crawling out of my cave of prediction depression. So I lost in our Survivor League this week. I lost in my other Survivor week the week before. My World Series prediction of the Dodgers lost. So I'm probably the dumbest host of a podcast ever. My true colors are coming out now. I made a terrible pick last week, Titans and Bills. I had two other games, the Vikings and the Texans, that I was originally thinking about picking. I kind of switched last minute because the stupid ESPN simulations had the Titans winning 74% of the simulations against the Bills.
They didn't have them missing 4 field goals.
Yeah, they didn't have them. Cairo
they didn't account for that. The Cairo Santos factor.
Yeah.
You
feel bad. He got cut.
Yeah, exactly. Well deserved.
And he's like, yeah, get him out of there.
So, but you know, the thing I like about this is I won't have as much anxiety over the next few weeks as you guys will, especially where we're down to 19.
Yep.
4 people won or advanced last night via the Patriots win against the Bills. So as it gets, down week to week here and, get down to 10, 5, if you guys are still around, I'm wishing the best for you, that you'll be calm.
Well, so now that this week I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys. They're playing against the Jets. I feel like because I'm running out of the good teams, I'm just going to have to go follow bad teams and more pick teams that I think are going to lose than teams that I think will win. So I've never done this before, and I've never made it this far. And so week to week, I'm like trying to rethink my strategy, figure out what the hell to do. Hopefully I get to still figure it out for a little while longer. But teams like the Redskins and the Dolphins are terrible. So I'd like to follow them around. But they're playing each other this week.
Who would you pick in that game?
So in my pool, I picked Washington. But, it could go one of two ways for Washington, losing their coach this week. They could go out and throw a total dud up there, and the Dolphins get their only win of the year. Or they can play inspired and really get after it and beat up on a really bad Dolphins team. But the fact that those two are playing each other takes them off the board, which makes this week even harder. That's why I think the next worst team is the Jets, at least at this point in the season. And I'm taking the Cowboys over them. I think the Cowboys will bounce back after a really disappointing performance against the Packers. And so I'm feeling pretty confident that I'll be around to chase the Dolphins again next week.
Love it. And Senior Vilvin, right? He picked the Patriots.
He picked
last
the Patriots.
Night. He's still alive.
Today is his birthday.
Oh, happy birthday,
so happy
Bobby.
Birthday, Pops. So he, I'm okay that he survived one more week because it is his birthday weekend. But we'll get him out of there next week. He's running out of the top teams too. So.
And Thomas here on the other side. No Patriots, no Cowboys to work with. What's your mindset right now? Ooh.
The only game I'm really tracking right now is Green Bay over Detroit, and
division game.
Yeah.
Monday Night Football. Oh baby.
I might have to fly out of the country while that game's on because I couldn't bear to watch that game.
I think the NFL's on in other countries too, Thomas. You can't escape it.
Damn. Wait, this isn't like I'll go to China. I think it's off there.
I think everything's off limits there.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to go with Green Bay. I think Lambeau Field and prime time, and that's going to be tentatively my pick.
I like that. I mean, I'm sure Green Bay's won like 14 of the last 16 or something like that against the Lions at Lambeau. I don't know, obviously, the exact numbers, but I feel like they dominate that matchup pretty good at Lambeau.
And they've looked really good the last couple weeks, Green Bay. I still have them in the back pocket, so that's a team I feel like if I survive, I'll be using at some point because they just seem like one of the better teams. I'm scared to pick the Saints when Drew Brees isn't there, even though Teddy Bridgewater's been really good and that defense is really nice. But yeah, again, I feel like I'm just going to chase the bad teams around.
They're not even the favorite in that game.
I know.
They're
Jacksonville's
1 point
like
underdog.
a 1.5 favorite at home. I think the Saints are going to go in and win that game, but I ain't picking it in the Survivor.
Same here.
Yep.
And I was going to say, here's a little something. My Sunday morning routine. I usually wake up pretty early, and I watch English Premier League soccer. Little known fact about me.
Little known fact.
The last few years, once the Chargers left town, I've started to get into English soccer. And this weekend, the Premier League is on an international break because they're doing Euro qualifying for the Euro 2020 championships. So I was like, what am I going to do between 6 a.m. and the football game starting? But we have a London football game, the Panthers and the Bucks, and I have a lot of fantasy implications in that because I got McCaffrey, Greg Olsen, and Mike Evans, who
hasn't done much lately.
Greg Olsen and Mike Evans both put up zeros last week for me, so I'm still upset. But big implications there. That's a 6:30 a.m. game. So this weekend with no soccer, I will still be watching football taking place in London, and I'm happy. So now we still got a 6:30 a.m. game, take us all the way through the day. And it's a good day to be a football fan on Sunday.
Are you just going to be watching football all weekend long, especially with this college action we've got going on?
Oh, yeah. The college slate, we haven't even talked about that yet. Holy cow. Saturday is slammed. Sunday is slammed. This is a big football weekend. Got to mix in some baseball at some point.
Yeah, right.
I haven't seen this. The NLCS starts today.
And then the ALCS on tomorrow. Saturday night.
Yeah. So I don't know how to fit in all that.
I'm overwhelmed with sports.
Overwhelmed with
opportunities
too much good stuff
right now.
Thomas probably has to watch some hockey too to write about it.
Exactly. Unbelievable. This is the greatest time for sports fans.
Yeah.
You know, and like you mentioned, Brian, just the rivalry time in college football. It's it's so much fun to watch these games. Like tomorrow morning, I'm specifically getting up early to watch the pregame for Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah.
That is such a. I want to go to that. I want to go to the Texas State Fair and kind of experience all that. I think those type of events really, to me, like I always wanted to go to see Ohio State and Michigan to kind of just experience that type of rivalry and how the fans interact with one another.
Yeah, totally. The Red River rivalry every year is a good game, even when one of the teams is way better or way worse than the other. But this year they're both Oklahoma a top 10 team and Texas number 11. Both of them have looked really good. Oklahoma's probably got the leading Heisman candidate again. Can you imagine having 3 straight Heismans, being 3 different quarterbacks for your team in consecutive years? Would be crazy. Lincoln Riley deserves a lot of credit there. But then we got SC on the road at Notre Dame. That's one of the best rivalries in sports.
You got to love that game.
And then a top 10 matchup with Florida on the road at LSU and the biggest SEC game of the weekend. So even if you don't have a team in college football, there's plenty to watch tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this is kind of when it starts. And then there's good games every week for the rest of the year.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So you mentioned Oklahoma and the quarterbacks that have come out of there. Baker Mayfield kind of been in the news a little bit this week after the Browns get beat pretty handily by the 49ers. Any thoughts on Baker and kind of a lot of the comments he's made this season or how other teams or players have reacted to him?
Personally, myself, I think he needed to keep quiet a little bit. I know it's not his personality, but I think you got to make your name for yourself in the NFL before you're allowed to talk like he does. And I just think that the hype around that team was kind of fake because you got to find the chemistry first before you can kind of move forward. And I don't think that team has found the chemistry. There's a lot of factors that were playing against them. First-year coach, second-year quarterback, and a hyperactive wide receiver that if he doesn't get the ball a lot gets really hyperventilates, quite frankly, on the sidelines. So I think everybody just has to calm down the expectations. It was a tough schedule to begin with. These networks sometimes don't play to help these teams out. I mean, five primetime games for the Browns that only won 7 games last year is a lot. I just think right now, if they could everybody just kind of exhale in that locker room and find their chemistry, I think they'll be fine. But it just wasn't meant to be right now, and that's why they're struggling, and they're pointing fingers at each other, and it's only going to get worse until they get the consistency.
Yeah.
I think we're going to learn a lot about Baker Mayfield in the weeks coming up because someone who's outspoken like this and does, has a lot of charisma and charm when it's good, and then looks like a real jerk when it's bad. How they handle the adversity, he hasn't had to deal with a ton of that. He's always been on, really good teams and performed pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles a little bit of this adversity coming up over the next couple weeks. And I think that'll be when I make my determination about him and whether he's cut out for the spotlight that he's been thrust into.
Yeah.
He is kind of like the Padres, we have Fernando Tatis Jr. and Chris Paddock. These are kind of the faces of our rebuild. He's become the face of the Browns rebuild, and the Browns are like everybody's darling. Like you said, all of a sudden now they're a big primetime spotlight team, and whether they succeed or fail, a lot of that's going to be put onto his shoulders. He had a really bad Monday night, and it was hard to watch, but I don't know if he bounces back, responds well, I'll have a new level of respect for him. Because you know what, to do all the trash talking and everything, I don't have a huge problem with that. These are the best athletes in the world. Being, there's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the world. He's one of them. So you got to have a little swagger. I'm cool with that, but you better go back it up if you're going to talk.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love the confidence that he has, but yeah, you got to back it up. I think the little spat with him and Sherman this week was kind of overblown, but going back to that game, that was a very impressive performance from the 49ers. Definitely the surprise team of the year here in 2019. Think there's any shot they take home the NFC title, the West title?
No. Shot, yes. I still think they're the third best team in the division. I think Seattle's probably better. I think the Rams are probably better. We'll learn a lot this weekend. San Francisco going on the road to the Rams. I think I wouldn't call it a trap game. That's the defending NFC champion. But the 49ers are coming in. They've got some injuries. They're a little bit depleted. They're not going to have Juszczyk, the fullback, who's been a huge factor for them. And I think the Rams I think they're going to turn it around. They've had a couple of disappointing performances in a row, and I wouldn't want to be playing the LA Rams this week. That's for sure.
Yeah, their defense is I think a playoff caliber.
Yep.
And the one thing about their offense that gets me is they're run orientated. I didn't realize how much run orientated they are, and once they establish a running game, it makes Garoppolo look like so much better quarterback because defenses are moving up into the box, and then it opens up the field for him. But I agree with you, Brian. Losing the fullback is going to be key this week, and if they're going to beat the Rams, George Kittle's going to have an outstanding game, and he's really going to have to kind of take those Rams linebackers downfield and lessen the pressure on Garoppolo. But if they beat the Rams, I agree with you, Andy. They could win that division. That's going to be a big win for them on the road.
That's going to be a fun division to follow. You may have maybe 2 AFC or NFC wildcard teams coming from that division. We'll see.
I could see all 3 of them making the playoffs.
Yeah. So that's obviously the big game in the NFC, the big game in the AFC, the Texans and the Chiefs this week.
Yep.
After the Chiefs fall to the Colts on Sunday night last week.
That eliminated a lot of survivors.
Yeah,
That
couple
in
our league. I think 5. Pat Mahomes got a little banged up in that game. It's hard to predict this one, but Houston's looked really impressive. How do you guys see this one playing out?
Houston has looked really good. Deshaun Watson is having an MVP type of start to the season, and the Chiefs look really banged up. I haven't seen yet if Tyreek Hill is potentially going to be back for this. I know they were shooting for this being the week that he could come back. Not having him is a huge factor. Sammy Watkins, again, left the last game after a play due to injury. So at some point, they've been able to just kind of like plug and play the way that the Patriots tend to do that. But when so much of your team is predicated around explosive offense and explosive plays, you need big playmakers to do that. The Patriots have a historically good defense, so they're able to mix and match with the offensive skill positions and kind of get away with maybe not having the big name guy in there. But the Chiefs' offense is predicated, their whole scheme and team is based on we're going to score 40 points and beat you out of the stadium. So until they get the Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill's back and healthy, this team is still, I think, among the best in the AFC, but it's going to be a lot tougher to blow teams out like they did a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas, who are you taking in this one?
It's a really tight.
By the way, I still got the Chiefs. I'm still picking them.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough matchup. I would like the Texans more if they had a running back like Melvin Gordon. We'll see if maybe they'll pick him up, but I got to go with the Chiefs in this one. That home they're playing at home. That atmosphere at Arrowhead is unlike any other stadium. I think it's a hard to overcome, and I really like the way because I went into the season thinking that there were like a lot more elite teams than there, and everybody else was kind of in the middle. And now I'm finding out that there's not really that many true elite teams, and we're back to parity again in the NFL, which just piques my interest. So I'm happy with that, because I just hate it when there's like one or two teams and everybody else falls by the wayside. This is going to be a key matchup, and it's really going to have ramifications in the AFC South and West as who's going to win their divisions respectively.
Yeah, I agree. I'm taking the Chiefs as well. I think they have a bounce back game after. Obviously not playing that great of a game against the Colts. They really lost the battle in the trenches, I would say, in that game. So I see them coming back strong.
I got a question for you guys. Is there one team that you think is better than their bad record? And is there one team that you think is worse than their good record?
It's a very good question.
I probably should have told you guys ahead of time that I'm going to drop this on you.
No, give me a minute.
I've thought about it. For me, I think the best team with a bad record right now is probably the Denver Broncos, because they're 1-4, and they've had 2 games where there were some questionable roughing the passer penalties and last-second field goals that beat them against the Bears and against the Jaguars. So they could easily be 3-2. They went into LA and beat that team last week. I think the Broncos, their defense is really good. Joe Flacco is a serviceable quarterback. I think they're better than that 1-4 record. Do I think they're like a playoff caliber team? Not necessarily. I think the West is still probably the deepest division in the AFC, but I think they're probably the best team with a really bad record right now that I've seen so far.
The team I want to say is the Steelers, but they've had so many injuries, and I just am shocked that the Steelers are as bad as they are. It just, I can't fathom that the Steelers are floundering and struggling to win games. I can't accept it.
Would they be that way with if Big Ben was healthy?
No, it's the injuries, and I mean, this week they're talking about starting Delvin Hodges, and I was like, who? I was really like, oh my God, is it really that bad in Pittsburgh that they're going to start Delvin Hodges?
Well, this is a team that in the Steelers that 2 years ago had the best receiver in the NFL in Antonio Brown. They had the best running back, arguably, in the NFL, in Le'Veon Bell. And they had a 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. And then all of a sudden this year, they are down to Juju Smith-Schuster's kind of the only recognizable receiver they have. James Conner, who was had a really good year last year, but was not a huge name coming out. And you go from Mason Rudolph to, what was the name of the guy you're talking about, Thomas?
Delvin Hodges.
Delvin Hodges. That is such a dramatic drop-off from, a year and a half ago. I just don't know how they can survive that and be a relevant team.
And they traded their first-round draft pick to get Mika Kirkpatrick from the Dolphins.
That's
Dolphins could have 2 top 5 picks this year.
Could be rough times in Pittsburgh.
Sadly, I'm having a little trouble with this, but I'm going to put out 2 teams that are better than their records. The Jacksonville Jaguars, which I feel like they're an 8-8 team, but they're 2-3.
Yep.
Leonard Fournette is coming on stronger this year. Gardner Minshew is kind of this strange figure in sports right now, but I like the plays he's making. They've had a really strong defense the last couple of years, so I could see them ended up being a 9-7 or 10-6 team, and I would have to say the same thing for the Los Angeles Chargers.
I knew you were going to do it, Andy. Why don't you just move to L.A., bro?
I hate them.
Dodgers are going to win the World Series. The best team in the NFL that has a bad record is the Chargers. Wow.
Okay, think about this.
Get out of here.
They're 2-3, right?
Yeah.
They won 11-5 last year.
12-4.
12-4.
Yeah.
They get Melvin Gordon back to solidify the offense a little bit more. I'm just saying, if they went 12-4 last year, they could go 10-6 this year and make the playoffs as a wild card team. There's no way they win the division,
Why just move to Carson already?
I know, right? Just
Jason McGregor's in Carson, by the way.
Making friends with the enemy right now.
Wow. Andy is like the biggest LA apologist I've ever.
Yeah. All right. What about the worst team with the best record?
I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. Okay. I didn't mean to steal them from you.
No, you're good. I'll
can
think
have
of something else.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of their games have come down to the wire where it could have gone either way. They could just as easily be 1-4 right now. I mean, losing to New England, they could have won that game too, so they could be undefeated. It took 4 missed field goals for them to win last week. It took a game-winning drive to beat the Jets in Week 1. I just feel like the Bills are positioned really well, especially in that division, to make the playoffs. But, boy, a couple breaks here and there, and they could be 1-4 like the Broncos. The Broncos the other way around, so.
I'm struggling with
Took
this.
the Bills,
What's the Raiders record? Are they 3-2?
3-2, yeah.
I need to stay out of the AFC West, so I got to branch out. I'm gonna go the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
They've been in a lot of close games, and I don't believe in Kirk Cousins very much these days.
Yep.
Are they? I don't know. Are they 3-2?
Yep, and they're playing against Philadelphia this weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't see them hanging tight in that division with the Lions coming on pretty strong, the Bears doing surviving without Mitch Trubisky, and then the way the Packers are looking. So I see them finishing up 6-10, 7-9.
Whoa.
Boom, nice.
Wow. That shocked me.
Andy hates Dalvin Cook and all things San Diego.
No,
He just loves
Dalvin's
that.
on my team. I just
He's been good.
So,
He's
there
been
was
really
a comment this week. I don't know who put it out, but I think it was a former Vikings player who said Kirk Cousins is the worst part of the Vikings offense right now.
Yeah, that will go down as the worst free agent signing in the history of the NFL.
The worst?
Yeah.
Did you just
I
say
mean,
that?
$98 million for that guy was ridiculous. He's not.
That's a lot of money.
He never won a big game when he was in Washington. He should never have been a consideration for a big money contract. It was just,
How much money did Matt Castle get? Sorry. I love SC. I love Matt Castle too, but Thomas is bringing some fire here on a Friday.
My team is the Carolina Panthers because I look at that roster and I'm like, that's like, if you take Christian McCaffrey out of that lineup, they could be with the Dolphins and the Redskins, wrestling for the bottom of the barrel. It's amazing what that guy does every week. He's on my fantasy team, and I watch him, and I'm all like, keep scoring the points. Move me up. But, boy, they're talking now Kyle Allen overtaking Cam Newton as a starter, and I'm like, come on now. When Cam gets healthy, he's going to be starting.
Yeah.
Let's not be ridiculous here. Kyle Allen's
he
done a
has looked
nice
good.
job.
Yeah, he
Don't get
has.
me wrong, but Olsen looks like getting a little rejuvenated in his career, but those wide receivers, DJ Moore doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry. It's just it seems like they just do smoke and mirrors every week, but they're in every game they're in. So give credit to that coaching staff. They come up with a game plan to keep them competitive. But it's just not my type of NFL football.
Well, hopefully Andy picks against them this week against Tampa Bay, because then they'll score about 65 points, and I'll get all those McCaffrey and Greg Olsen points for fantasy. Christian McCaffrey, I tweeted out that he is the fantasy football cheat code because he puts up over 40 points every single week. The only week he didn't was week
against
2.
the Bucks.
Yeah, when it wasn't it?
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's because Cam never gave him the ball. Like, Cam was I think Cam was mad that McCaffrey got all the love, so he's like, I'm not going to throw you the ball. I'm going to throw it to you in terrible positions. And anyway, I'll stop complaining about that. But, yeah, he is having the kind of year that LT had when he was a Charger in his MVP season when he broke the touchdown record.
Yep.
Like, that's the type of brilliance that he has, and nobody can stop him. It's unbelievable, except for the Bucks.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Except when he does that backflip and hurt his back. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
but it's a little scratch. He's okay.
Yep.
He practiced yesterday, so I'm feeling good about McCaffrey. That's your paper tiger, okay.
So do you have? Okay, so
The Bills was
the Bills.
mine, yeah.
The Bills. Yeah, we're finished on that topic. All right, guys. Well, we have the Washington Mystics as the WNBA champions.
Yeah,
Think
big time.
There's probably somebody leading a PGA tournament somewhere in America. I'm not sure which one.
Yep.
We're likely to have some brilliant billiards action here at McGregor's this weekend. Any other topics or things you're looking at this weekend?
I mean, it's going to be wall-to-wall football. A lot of fun with a little bit of baseball sprinkled in here and there. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get like multiple screens up.
Yeah,
Have one
exactly.
on my phone, one on the TV, have a computer up, try to get as many games as possible. So, yeah, I'm excited. This is a great sports weekend and the first of I'd say the second. Last weekend was pretty good, but as we move forward, it only gets better from here.
Yeah, there's a lot of action. There's not enough TVs for me to watch everything I want to, so I'll just, like Brian said, I'll have to use my computer and phone to keep up to date.
Yeah.
Andy's wearing his Wyoming Cowboys colors today.
Exactly.
Wow. Andy's rooting against the Aztecs.
It's more.
San Diego
it's
State's
not
playing
the-
against Wyoming
Yeah.
on Saturday night.
Uh-oh.
About 30 feet away from us right here. We're in the shadow of the Q, or SDCCU Stadium, and you come in here wearing Wyoming Cowboys colors. Wow.
Don't come around me and Bob Chandler. We will have it out for you, and
Chandler
we'll throw
and
it
Thomas
down.
are coming after Andy
Uh-oh.
on Saturday. They're going to come
Uh-oh.
find you.
I got to go into my hiding place again.
Wait, but if you pick Wyoming, then San Diego State's going to roll them.
Exactly.
So that's perfect.
With my
Andy's got the Cowboys
trajectory
this
lately.
week.
All right, good stuff, guys. Love it. It's been fun for another episode. Thanks again to McGregor's for hosting us. As always, we'll catch you next time on another Best Coast Sports Connection episode. Bye for now.